When we think of an easy world conquest, we always think of the typical Ottomans, Mughals, Oirat, Spain, or Austria campaign. But there's a nation that's on par with those options yet not commonly looked at, and that's the Mamluks. Let's begin. Hire level 1 advisors and set a focus if you want. Give out the +1 monthly mana privileges. Give oversight by the ulama, clerical ministers, and grant local residence to scholar. You can now choose to get a bonus from inviting one of the schools, but keep in mind that the shock damage schools can only be selected with -50 piety. I recommend taking the -10% aggressive expansion school, but do not invite the scholar yet. We need to save up quite a few admin points at the beginning, and we can select it a few years from now. For the emirs, give supremacy over the crown, strong duchies, and emirs integration policy. For the merchant guilds, give patronage of the arts and free enterprise. Keep one slot open in case you ever need to take the discounted loans. If you prefer to take the discounted advisors, then don't give the privileges until after you stab up to 0 or 1, because you will be taking a stab hit. Set the development cost edict in Fayoum and develop once with Diplo. Sell Crownland, develop it once more with admin, and seize. Also, don't forget to give the Dhimmi, promote the Dhimmi nobles, summon the diet and pick an agenda. Build a few more galleys, move one cav unit to your 11k stack in Alexandria, and slacken recruitment twice. You start with 10% army professionalism, and that's basically 14,000 free manpower. Send a diplomat to improve relations with Medina and set the attitude to friendly once relations are at 50. Embargo Venice. This allows us to complete the Alexandrian trade mission, giving claims on Shammar and Aniza. The next mission gives us some useful claims in Anatolia. Whenever you can send another diplomat, you can revoke the embargo. Now recruit the free company in Rashid. Sometimes you can rival nations like Lithuania. If you can, do so, because you will quickly eclipse these smaller nations and then change rivals to bigger ones, like QQ. Otherwise, definitely rival the Ottomans. Now it's time to get some very good, very high shock and siege pip generals. Okay, a 4 shock 1 siege is acceptable. That's pretty good actually. Your ruler is 72 years old, so he's gonna die soon anyways. Move your troops onto the fleet in the Bay of Alexandria and declare a no-CB war against Byzantium. Occasionally they won't ally Serbia, but it isn't a problem if they do. Move your troops to the Sea of Marmara and disembark onto Constantinople. So the troops are actually a little under 9k, but the manpower will trickle in quickly and will soon start making progress on the siege. Send the fleet back to the Bay of Alexandria, and this time we will ship the Free Company onto the province of Athens. And once they're there, send the fleet back for the 3rd time to ship the 10k army onto the fort in Marea. And now it's just chilling while the 3 armies are sieging. Keep the fleet in Marmara and blockade Constantinople. Once it falls, you can send it to the Aegean, but don't divide your ships between the two. Don't forget to stab up once you have enough admin points. Stability is the priority, so keep that in mind. When your ruler dies, you'll get the event Mamluk Succession. So the 3 choices are between a Serbian, Egyptian, and Circassian candidate. The differences are the Serbian and Egyptian candidates allow you to make progress on your cultural interactions, but they have lower starting legitimacy. You also get an extra 15 army tradition if you pick the Circassian candidate. In my opinion, the Egyptian candidate is best as that's our dominant culture, and allows us to get the most out of the cultural interactions. The ruler stats are RNG, and the 454 is pretty good. Note that the Mamluk government directly increases your ruler's admin stat by 2, so 5 admin is actually the average. If you get a bad ruler, you can always make him into a general and get him out earlier. One of the benefits of the Mamluk government is you actually don't take a stab hit on ruler death, so that's pretty nice. Most of the time, your enemies will actually get mill access through the Ottomans. In that case, you can send an army to besiege the Serbian capital and get them out of the war. But that wasn't the case in my game, and that's actually the worst case because you just have to wait for war exhaustion to tick up. And the demands we want are to vassalize Byzantium as well as take the province of Athens. After you peace out the Byzantines, they will be pretty disloyal. Just improve relations with them and give them the province of Athens. To prepare for our first Ottoman war, ferry the 12k army left behind in Egypt to the province of Constantinople. Hire an admiral too if you want. The Ottoman fort mothballs will be pretty RNG, but this war will be easy even if they mothball none. The only bad RNG will be if they ally Akkoyunlu or Tunis. If you're not that confident, or if the Ottomans have strong allies, you can take the Burger loans and get some merc companies. In the end of the day, your navies will be the biggest factor for your victory because of its effect on sieges, as well as its ability to blockade the straits between Europe and Asia. Your relations with Medina should also be at 190 by this point, so you can send a diplomat to offer vassalization. This allows you to complete the mission, the Holy Cities. There are 3 options, with the top one giving you the most prestige and a single Hejaz instead of 2 vassals in the region. Make sure you do this before you declare the war on the Ottomans, and when you do declare on the Ottomans, set the CB as reconquest for any forts they may have mothballed. The Ottomans were allied to both AQ and Ramazan, I don't know, which was pretty bad RNG for me, but this is still winnable. Just send your army in Athens to the fort in Selanik, and your army in Constantinople to Edirne, I don't know. Set the defensive edict in the fort of Halab, and set the military focus of Fadl and Hejaz to be on passive. Selanik fell in 1 month tick because of the mothball, and now you can just wait on the other Balkan forts in Edirne and Gelibolu to fall as well. Send the Free Company to besiege Gelibolu and the rest to carpet siege the Balkans. And remember to transfer all the forts to Byzantium after they fall. That way, you won't have to pay for its maintenance. When you get a diplomat freed up, you can send it to begin building a spy network on the Ottomans for just a bit of extra siege ability. Look at that, the Ottomans conveniently bypassed my fort in Halab. Well, just set the defensive edict on Damascus too and continue focusing on the Balkans. After Edirne falls, you can begin sending your men over to the Anatolian side and start besieging the forts there. I don't recommend doing any barraging or anything like that because we need to save every mill point for taking Tech 4. Even though we're just waiting on the forts, keep a close eye on your troops in Anatolia. As you can see here, Halab fell to the Ottomans and their army was marching towards mine, but I took Tech 4 just in time, and that alone was a deterrent for them to stay out of their own provinces. Always remember, you can check the ledger for army quality. Look at that beautiful morale advantage. Byzantium's Liberty Desire was still at 70%, so I decided to dev twice and placate rulers to get it just under 50. If you ever want to dev provinces to reduce Liberty Desire, always do it in low dev provinces. Now this is how to fight against Ottomans. I hope that did all the explaining. The Ottomans might not engage you throughout this war, but it's important to be prepared if they do. This is why Miltech 4 is so important, and keep an eye on your armies so you can properly micro when this happens. If you have the province occupied, then scorch it. Keep your armies together and trickle them in. After a little bit of carpet sieging, you can peace out the Ottomans. I recommend returning all Byzantine cores except Edirne for easier wars in the future, as well as Ohrid to release Bulgaria and get claims on the gold mine in Kosovo. I also took war reps, a bunch of ducats, and annulled the alliance with Akkoyunlu. In hindsight, I probably should have taken some Turkish provinces, like the area around Teke for a beachhead in future conquests, but I was still able to wipe out the Ottomans in the next 45 years. Now with your early game adversary neutralized, it's time to attend to some important business in the Arabian Peninsula. You can get rid of the Free Company as there's not really a use for them now. Send your armies back to the mainland and one to the border of Aniza, or in my case, Shamar conquered one province from Aniza but left them alive in the south. The situation here doesn't matter as you're gonna fully annex it all anyways. Shamar and or Aniza might be allied to a few annoying countries like Makuria to your south, or Hizn Kaifa with a level 3 fort, so be prepared to send in troops to deal with any allies they have. You can also set objectives for your vassals to siege provinces for you, so you don't waste your manpower on it. Peace out any allies and send an army to the border with Miklaf. In my case, they were allied to the Rasids, so I co-belligerented them as well. When it's time to peace out Aniza and or Shamar, you can either feed the land to Fadl so you don't have to core it, or take it for yourself so you can fabricate claims on Eastern Arabia. I fed it to Fadl in my game, but I would recommend taking it for yourself to begin conquering the East sooner. When you get 100% war score on Miklaf and Rasids, fully annex them. Yemen is rich in development and the Gulf of Aden trade node feeds directly into Alexandria. Another thing you can do, if you prefer, is to get a vassal in Yemen and feed them the region. Just make sure to either take these lands for yourself or have a vassal keep it. Start improving relations with Hejaz and send a diplomat to begin annexing them. You can also try to improve relations and ally a European power at this point, such as Austria, to help deal with big alliance networks and get some ducats and manpower from favors if needed. It's time to declare war on one of the Beyliks. Remember that you have claims on these areas because of finishing the mission. The area was pretty strange in my game. Karaman and Dulkadir fought a war, but Karaman only took one province from Dulkadir. Whatever the situation is for you, declare war on one of the nations and co-belligerent other Turkish nations when possible. For me, Dulkadir was annoyingly allied to the Great Horde. I sent some troops up there to get a white peace and fully annexed Dulkadir. Do not concentrate and fully state provinces with Turkish culture. Whenever you can spare 100 Diplo points, accept Turkish culture as well. You can technically wait to do this, but the unrest will be lower than it would be otherwise. When you unlock Admin Tech 5, take Admin Ideas, and when the cooldown for National Focus is up, focus Admin. Admin Ideas are absolutely essential for any world conquest run because of the core creation cost and governing capacity. After you annex Dul Qadir, go for Karaman. They were allied to Ak Koyunlu, so I just took a border with QQ, their money, trade, and pillage capital. Whenever you peace out a nation but are not fully annexing them, check to see if you can pillage the capital. Most of the time you won't be able to, but it's pretty neat to get some extra dev in your provinces when you can. When you have 100 war score on Karaman, fully annex them with all their cash. And just like with Dul Qadir, do not concentrate it, just state it. Here is Rebel Management 101. There were a total of 15k rebels in Yemen, but I only had 10k troops there. Do I send another stack in from my Anatolian front? No, I outsmarted them. The two rebels were of different tags, and because they were separatists, they will only occupy and attack provinces from their cores. So I liberated one of Miklaf's provinces, and the rebels attacked me despite being outnumbered and in mountains. After that, I attacked Rasid's rebels normally because they were not on defensive terrain. I was also pretty negligent and the emirs got 100% influenced before I realized. The good news is that the progress they make towards the disaster is based on loyalty, and so a mixture of appeasing them and waiting for the event modifiers to expire led to no disaster taking place. Now at this point, I also got some cultural interactions. Basically, you have admin, diplo, and mill cultural interactions. You need to have 150 progress on any of them to click the button, and you gain this progress monthly based on your ruler's skill in that category. For example, my rulers 4 admin generated 4 admin cultural progress per month in that category. And these bonuses are pretty good too. The minus 5% all power costs only lasts a year, so take it right before taking an idea or tech or after a really big conquest. You could be like me and try to save it for a combination, but trust me, this won't work. You'll end up almost never taking it like I did. Just keep a note of when it happens and take it for taking a tech, unlocking an idea, or coring some conquests. As for the other two interactions, the Diplo one gives you cash equal to the development of your ruler's culture times 2. So if your ruler's culture is Egyptian and you have 200 dev of Egyptian provinces, you'll get 400 ducats from pressing this button. Manpower is the same, but it's your development times 50. So with 200 dev, you'll get 10,000 manpower. When it comes to the institution, set the development cost edict in Alexandria and dev away. You can gain some progress for free because Venice's province in Crete will have it spread along your coast, but it honestly isn't that helpful. Just sink spare monarch points in and the institution will come. Because of legalism and occasionally a loyal dhimmi, you can still take tech at plus 15% cost for under 600 points. Since you have a foothold in Anatolia, you can delete the fort in Halab now. It isn't on defensive terrain and isn't too necessary, but if you still want to have a fort in the area, build one on one of Dul Qadir's mountain provinces. Also, I do recommend setting some state edicts. If you're struggling with manpower, then set those. Otherwise, the centralization and trade edict will be beneficial. And speaking of trade, you should have trade ships protecting trade in Alexandria. When you're at peace, you can either have your army maintenance down, drill your armies, or keep your forts mothballed. It's your choice. I integrated Hejaz around 1464, concentrated, stated, and deleted the fort. Because you might have some autonomy in all your provinces from Crownland and being at war, I decided to reduce autonomy in all these provinces once their unrest was under -10. This way, I would have 0 autonomy in all these provinces while still having them just under 0 unrest. This slightly backfired, but you should still do this if you're prepared to deal with rebels once you get a slight increase in unrest from something like war exhaustion. I will cover how to deal with that later. Now that's what I call an income boost. Make sure you are at least on par or ahead of the Ottomans in tech when going to war with them. Even though they have been significantly weakened, they can still be quite strong. They allied Ak Koyunlu again, as well as Ramazan, which is just slightly annoying. The Byzantines were actually pretty useful and besieged Edirne on their own. If you're at war with Ak Koyunlu at this point, you can take Erzurum if you want. I didn't do this until later, but keep in mind that this province is necessary for forming Rum. I also took the burgher loans at this point, which is something you should not hesitate to do if you're low on ducats. From the Second Ottoman War, I took this peace deal, with a snake to the Strait of Marmara. Just don't ask me what I was doing in the Balkans though. Right after piecing out, I used my vassal Fadl's cores on QQ to declare war. QQ is actually a bit stronger than they seem, so keep your armies close by and don't be too confident. Look at Byzantium actually being a good vassal and helping me out here. So when QQ dared to attack my Byzantine brothers, of course I'm gonna step in and help them out. No one touches my vassals. When he sieged down Mosul, take your highest siege pip general and send him on Tabriz. It's a level 3 mountain fort, so take some patience with you as well. It's also useful to keep your spy network in QQ for the siege ability boost. By this point, if you're in a similar situation to me and gave Fuddle the Arabian provinces, you should begin Diplo-annexing them. I unknowingly cut myself off from the eastern expansion route and didn't realize this until after 1500, so Diplo-annexed them. When piecing out QQ, I gave the province of Rahba to Fuddle and took a bunch of provinces here to release a new vassal of Iraq. And so this is what my map looked like in 1472. Balkans and Anatolia were quite gory, but the borders are a bit cleaner in Mesopotamia and Arabia. Around this time I was also at my governing cap, and I would actually be over it for the next few decades. While you should be careful of expanding while well over the limit, you should also not refrain from conquests at all. Trust me, it's fine to go a little over. AE is set off by the scholars, and TCR is set off by the second admin idea. Instead of repaying burger loans if you took any, you should invest the extra cash into buildings. Around 1474, I declared war on Yemen because they had cores on neighboring Aden. Your situation should be pretty different, where you're either taking the land for yourself or you have a vassal there already. Whatever the case is, the Gulf of Aden is relatively high in dev and will fuel your trade economy until your capital moves. I also declared war on Hisn Kaifa for 3 provinces to finish a mission, get a border with Erzurum, and return a core to Iraq. Aretna popped out as well. It was also at this point that Venice and even the Knights took a bite out of the Ottomans, who I just noticed somehow allied Castile with a PU on Portugal, Aragon, and Naples. The way to win in the Mediterranean is to build galleys, so I did that in preparation for a war with the Iberians. And after vassalizing Yemen, I declared war on Aden to return cores to my new vassal, and Eretna as they had only allied Crimea, and that was more Turkish land to state up. It's important to get as many Turkish provinces as possible, so if there's any Beylik left or a nation released, make a claim and fully annex them. It's really important that you begin integrating Byzantium in this time. They have a lot of dev, so it will take a few decades to do so, but they should still be annexed in the early 1500s. I also managed to trigger the Radical Reforms event, which gave me 400 much needed monarch points. You can trigger this event by firing advisors until you get a plus 0.1 yearly inflation reduction and plus 10% trade efficiency. When this event triggers, you can fire the advisors, get 200 admin and diplo power, and hire the advisors again. In Ethiopia, Adal was left alive in 2 provinces by a rather large Ethiopia. As the Mamluks, it's extremely easy to diplo vassalize countries, so I allied Adal, improved relations, and diplo vassalized them. They had a bunch of cores on Ethiopia that I could use to neutralize them. Also, if there was any doubt, you don't need to take quantity ideas as the Mamluks. Anyways, Adal was vassalized, and I declared my first war against Ethiopia in 1482. This war is more annoying than actually difficult because Ethiopia has a few mountain forts and a massive reduction to moving capital cost, which they moved to a 6 dev province behind their forts. Super annoying. But even though your units are superior, don't get too confident and keep a close eye on your stacks, as a few of them could get picked off if you aren't careful. When you win a siege in a fort, transfer the occupation to Adal to save some money. I had to send some of my units back as Ethiopia was carpet sieging Egypt, but after 3 years of mountain sieges and chasing down 3k armies, I took this peace deal. A bunch of cores returned to Adal, along with some extra land, taking away Ethiopia's coast and connecting Egypt to Adal. Also, make sure to take some mountain forts in this war so you won't have to deal with it again, and I also took Ethiopia's gold mine in Damat. And now the map was looking pretty tall. Some border gore in the Balkans, but that will be fixed soon. Now I also revoked the Merchant Guild's loyalty privilege, and took the 100 governing capacity one instead. Just keep in mind that loyalty must be higher than influence in order to revoke a privilege, and it costs 5 crownland for the governing cap privileges. And speaking of crownland, I had 25 after giving the privilege. Don't forget to seize crownland whenever the estates' loyalties are over 50. Do not underestimate using the ledger. I checked how many ships Castile had, and saw that they still had a bunch more than me. So I built a bunch more galleys before declaring war on the Ottomans. You can also compare troop numbers as well as army and navy quality. Before you fight a big war, make sure you're at least on the same or higher miltech. The Ottomans actually moved their capital from Edirne back onto the Anatolian side, which honestly just made it easier. But look at this Mediterranean war. Sadly, it wasn't as epic as it looks. The war opened with just an ordinary stack wiping and carpet sieging of the Ottomans, and fighting some boats that very stupidly decided to blockade me. Or at least, I chased them down as much as I could. But before I knew it, Castile had almost 40,000 men at the gates of Alexandria. So using the army template, I raised another army, sent down an existing one, and hired the Free Company. I also landed 10k troops on Naples to try and take up their war exhaustion. Castile reinforced in Africa, and so I was forced to send another army down there to repel them. Though sheer numbers deterred them from attacking and they began to run away. I was finally able to call in my Austrian allies, who helped tremendously in fully occupying Naples and allowing me to white peace the Spanish. So with the Spanish out of the war, I returned Bulgaria's cores, but accidentally transferred occupation to Bohemia. This is really stupid. Sadly, I had to save scum my game back to 1 month ago to actually take the peace. I returned all of Bulgaria's cores, took 2 provinces for myself, and of course, annulled their alliance with Castile. If you're struggling with governing capacity, you can skip out of taking admin ideas for a bit in order to take up to level 8. The benefits are that you'll get another idea group, as well as getting another 100 governing capacity from the tech. Declaring war on QQ for the second time, I intended to take some provinces in the Basra area, so I could eventually fight the Timurids and begin expanding into Persia and India. It was also at this point that I remembered monuments exist, so whenever you have a few ducats to spare, upgrade some of them. Anyways, like always, the QQ war was just annoying, with their armies running around my land yet avoiding my troops. It was extremely annoying that I could take provinces for myself in the north, but I couldn't in the south. To be honest, I still don't know why, and this blocked me from expanding east. I had to diplo-annex Iraq before doing that, which was really annoying. So instead, I just gave a few provinces to Iraq and took Erzurum for myself. QQ had conquered it at this point, but you should take it from whoever owns it. As mentioned before, having this province as a core is a requirement for forming Rum. Remember that naval force limit is just a number. No, really, both trade ships and galleys are insanely cheap, and despite being well over the force limit, this only costed me 2.5 ducats. Around 1496, I began to unstate some of my Egyptian provinces in order to culture shift. In hindsight, you probably shouldn't start doing this until after your 4th Ottoman War, but I was just seeing how much unstating would be required to do it. The answer is way too much unstating. So basically, in order to culture shift, the culture you want to shift to has to be 50% development of your stated land. So obviously, that's why you need to state Turkish provinces and not concentrate them so they have as much dev as possible. To increase this, you can also develop Turkish provinces and unstate non-Turkish provinces, which is what I ended up doing. Do not follow me here. You should start unstating Egyptian provinces after you have stated all of Anatolia. Because minimum autonomy is tied to whether a province is in a territory or a state, unstating provinces caps the minimum autonomy at 50%. That is huge when considering just how many provinces I had to unstate. My economy dipped and even my vassals became disloyal afterwards because of the dent my manpower and economy took from this. Begin unstating when Turkish culture is at 40% and when you have a few hundred spare admin points, and state the provinces again right after you embrace Turkish culture. But now that Turkish is the primary culture, I could actually see the decision to form Rum in the Decisions tab. You need to have a bunch of Anatolian provinces cores, Ottomans and Byzantium must not exist, and you must be at peace. The last one was actually the hardest for me, for reasons you'll see shortly. So it was 1496, I stupidly unstated a bunch of provinces to prematurely culture shift, and I had quite a few disloyal vassals because of it. Liberty desire can be reduced from relations and developing your vassals' provinces. In 1498, Austria called me into war against Wallachia. Wallachia, I don't know. And I could see why. They were allied to Montenegro and Crete. Austria had 2 PUs of their own, but they still found it necessary to call me into a war against a 5-province nation. I answered it but completely ignored it, and instead declared war on the Knights to take back my rightful Turkish clay. And also the raids were rather annoying. They were allied with Venice, but because of my galley spam, even the Venetians cowered in fear as their capital was burned. I also declared war on Albania just to take Kosovo for Bulgaria and some money. The economy made a full recovery thanks to wasting way too many admin points on stating everything back. I tried to get my vassals to make some claims by setting provinces as interest, and this normally works, except my vassals decided to just not. But I annexed Byzantium in October 1502, which checked one more thing off the forming requirements. When you annex Byzantium, you should delete the fort in Selanik because it isn't on defensive terrain and doesn't protect anything important. I fabricated claims on Shamar myself and had a brief war to fully annex them. As mentioned before, this was to expand eastwards, as after Rum is formed, you should focus on expanding in Persia and India. Persia has a lot of good vassals for reconquest such as Ajam, Fars, and Khorasan, and you can also make the Persia node into a trade company as a compromise between contribution and governing capacity. After fighting Shamar, I would have declared war on the Timurids to neutralize them and take some provinces, but Castile declared war on Tlemcen. Since I was the defender of the faith, I had to answer this call and fight a second war with the Iberians. This was really annoying, and I couldn't attack the Timurids with my army tied up fighting the Spanish, so I just fought until I could get another white peace. But by the time I could get a white peace, my truce with the Ottomans was up and it was time to finally check the last requirement off for forming the Mughals. The Ottomans had just 8 provinces in 1510, and there were more rebels than Ottoman troops, so this war was not challenging at all. Now if it couldn't get any worse, the Austrians called me into their offensive war while I was still fighting the Ottomans, and now I had to get a white peace with Poland. To avoid something like this in your game, I recommend toggling this Joining Offensive Wars button. You won't gain any favors, but at least you won't be called into your allies' stupid wars that prevent you from forming Rum. So after 2 long years of sieging down Moldova and clearing some Polish stacks, I could finally get the last condition of being at peace and formed Rum in 1513. This could have been done a lot earlier had Castile not attacked Tlemcen or Austria calling me in against Poland, but it's alright, I guess. Take the new traditions and ambitions, and you are now basically the Ottomans without starting as the Ottomans. Forming Rum makes you an empire, instantly relieving any burden on governing capacity that you might have had. From here, you can form the Caliphate first before going for a world conquest if you want to do a one faith, or if you just want to do an ordinary world conquest without starting as one of the top 5, then you could go east to conquer Persia and India. As for ideas, we already took admin and offensive, but the next ideas should be something like influence, religious/humanist depending on your goals, and diplomatic. Rum is nearly identical to the Ottomans when it comes to the bonuses. Although the ideas are different, they are both really good for a world conquest, and you even get the Ottoman government form when you form Rum. This means you can get the harem mechanics and you will have really good rulers throughout your campaign. You should have a stronger foothold in Eastern Arabia and Persia because you most likely didn't have to fight a really strong Castile. But whatever your case is, you can begin rapidly expanding into the Timurids and India. The AE reduction from the scholars helps too, and for some reason if you want to play tall, you can change your scholar to the minus 10% development cost. I hope this guide helped you out if you want to form Rum. Have a good 2022 and see ya!